So we're going to continue with the Pāramīs today, and I decided to talk about both Viriya and Adhitthana together. So energy and resolve, or determination. And energy, Viriya, is mentioned so much in the suttas by the Buddha. He included it in the 7 factors of enlightenment as part of the 5 faculties and 5 powers. It's one of the 4 bases of success, or basis of psychic power in the Iddhipadas. And you can understand why, because we can't really get much of anything done without energy, without putting effort into things. And so those are usually the translations, either energy or effort. And it's a beautiful, obviously, beautiful quality. And I also want to talk about Adhitthana. They go well together. Adhitthana is really a resolve, determination, and you don't really see that much about it in the suttas. And it's used in a compound that talks about the wrong kind of resolve, or the wrong kind of determination. And I think it really kind of coalesced as a Pāramī. Obviously, the Pāramīs, that list came after the Buddha's time. But I think it really kind of coalesced as a positive quality later on. And I think it's it's certainly an excellent, very helpful, I'm going to say concept. It's more than that, of course, but identifying the specific determination is valuable. It's very common among the monastics to have a particular determination, like a commitment to doing a certain kind of practice, particularly for a period of time. Oftentimes the vasa, the 3-month rains period, is one time when monastics might take on a special practice. And the determination to do it, the resolve to follow that regimen for that period of time is very helpful. And the monastics take it quite seriously as a way to develop character, develop stamina, to develop some aspect of practice or renunciation. And instead of talking about the kind of maybe standard kind of textbook ideas about Viriya, or some of the concepts of Adhitthana, I thought I'd read a little bit from Stillness Flowing, where Ajahn Chah talks about these things. And just to give an idea, and what I'd like to see today, instead of just my talking about it for the 20 minutes or whatever it is that I talk, 20 to 40, I don't know how long, depends, is if you have questions about what I'm reading or comments, then raise your hand. And I'm gonna let you take care of that and make sure we catch people's hands if they come up, and have some discussion about this. So the first reading I'm going to do is on page 49. In the paragraph toward the bottom of the page, it says, Luang Por still did not find meditation easy. So this is early on in his practice as a meditation monk, because he started out and in the village monastery, and there was a lot of study, but the meditation monks were more the forest monks, and he had made that shift but he said, he still wasn't finding meditation easy, but he persevered, constantly observing what worked and what did not. His biggest frustration was that he felt more at peace when he was not meditating than when he was. I don't know if anyone here has that experience, but that can be very frustrating. If we're trying to develop a meditation practice, we know it's a good thing, but then when we sit down to meditate, it's more disturbing or agitating than our normal times without meditating. He reflected again and again on the fact that the more effort he put into meditation, the more his breathing became labored and the less his mind would settle. It seemed that meditation made things worse rather than better. And then he made an important discovery. My determination had turned into attachment. That's why I got no results. These were actually Ajahn Chah's words. Things got burdensome because of the craving that I carried with me into the practice. So when we think about our determination to do things, it's so important in our effort, but we can easily be making effort in an unproductive way. And this idea of how when we are attached to a result, or we've got a specific idea of what we want the outcome to be, that can really get in the way. So when we make a resolve, it's not the resolve to attain something. It's the resolve to do something that is doable. Like I'm going to meditate a certain amount of time every day. And even that can become a burden or a barrier if we're forcing ourselves and we just feel like we have to sit there and make ourselves do something, like we're being forced to work. And Ajahn Ghana talks about, the way he says that meditation is easy. You just breathe in happily and you breathe out happily. And you're happy when you're meditating. You're not trying to force yourself to do something. So it's like really useful, no, I think almost critical, to find a way that our effort and our determination to do things, our resolve, is really lifting us up, encouraging us, and not forcing us in a way that we feel, it's not that it's bad to feel pressure. It's just, I think you get the idea where when we start to oppress ourselves, it doesn't help. And to maybe come with more kindness towards ourselves along with our determination and resolve, so that there's real encouragement there. And then, that he had this attachment to meditation. So Ajahn Chah talked a lot about, really observing what's happening in meditation, and regardless of whether, and I think we're going to have a passage like this too, regardless of whether we think it's a great meditation or not. In fact, don't even think like that. Just observe whatever's coming. That's really meditation. Of course, we want to put in the causes and the conditions for the mind to become still, and for the meditation practice to unfold in a natural way. And so, like the determination and the effort goes into putting in those causes and conditions. And in a sense, what Ajahn Chah was realizing here is what what we could be putting in that actually is not a cause for the furtherance of the practice, but it becomes a cause that puts barriers into the practice. Can you get rid of this? Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Lane?
Yeah, I have a question. I wonder if you can comment on this kind of thinking. When you're talking about, sometimes when you meditate, you actually feeling more agitated than not meditating. I have this experience, especially just for the early morning meditation. So I made resolve getting up really early to meditate. The reason is I feel like even I am agitated, my thoughts just go all over the place. But after I sit for example, an hour and a half, afterwards, I always feel like I have more peace, even with meditation was terrible, and
Yeah.
my day went well. So even my meditation was not didn't go well, but afterwards I feel better. So I still went along. I wonder if that, so that's why I carried on. I wonder if that's right way to deal with this approach.
Yes, because I think the um, noticing how that feels afterwards is so important. And it's, as I was trying to say, and I think we might see more of it from Ajahn Chah, that it's not really about whether or not whatever's happening in the meditation, the parts we can't control, like what's going, all this agitation in the mind, we can't really control. So it's about observing that, continuing to just be present with it, observe it, that that's really what's needed. And that's why it feels calming afterwards. It's like you actually are just being present with this activity of the mind. And the more we put the attention on that observer part and we strengthen that part, that we can continue to observe what's happening and not get caught up in what's happening in the mind, that strengthens the knowing. And it's not going in, falling in along with the doing side of things. So yes, I think that is the right way to handle it. And I think, when we are just kind of continually placing ourselves in that knowing and strengthening that aspect, it's not with an attachment. It's not caught up in the desire for it to be different than it is. So it sounds like you're on the right track. It sounds to me like you're on the right track. Yeah, thank you, Ling. This is from page 81. The title of this section is A Mighty Struggle. As related above, Lungpa returned to Lungpu Kinari's monastery before the beginning of the rains retreat and was soon presented with a new robe. He accelerated his meditation practice, keeping up his walking meditation practice even if the sun was fierce or the rain was pouring down, until the center of his walking path was worn into a furrow. Lungpo Kinari, on the other hand, hardly walked at all. Sometimes he might be strolling up and down his meditation path 2 or 3 times and then sitting down in a shady place to patch a piece of cloth or repair something broken. And then this is Lungpa Cha's words. I assumed that he was getting nowhere. he didn't practice walking meditation. He never sat for very long. He would just putter around doing this and that the whole day. As for me, I thought, I hardly take a moment's rest and I still haven't realized anything. If Luang Por is practicing like this, what can he ever hope to achieve? I got it wrong. Luang Por Kinari knew far more than me. He seldom gave admonitions, and those he did were terse, but his words were always profound and full of keen wisdom. So then Luang Por Chah summarized the important lesson he had learned. The scope of a teacher's vision far exceeds our own. It's the effort to eradicate the defilements within the mind that is the essence of practice. You can't judge the teacher by how much he sits and walks. So this idea, even whether it's a teacher or not, to look at someone else and say, oh, they're not doing the right thing, they're not getting it. But what's really important, this is not intended to be an excuse to not meditate. Let me say that. It's important to meditate, obviously, but to recognize that the most important part is to deal with the defilements of the mind. And this again is like, where are we putting the effort? And obviously this, and of course there's more about Luang Por Kinari in here that really exemplifies what Ajahn Chah was talking about, the wisdom that he had. But I have this image of this, monk, elderly monk, doing his pottering around, but having worked so diligently with the mind and what the states of the mind are. And it's really, like interesting always to me that when the Buddha talks about right effort, he talks about mental states. He doesn't talk about hours of sitting and walking meditation. And Ajahn Ganha has really taken up this very strong, statements about how, especially in the West, we meditate too much sitting meditation. And why he says that is because there's this, he said people put all the focus on samadhi and they don't work with the mind, and they get up from meditation and then they're angry with people or they're fighting with people or there's problems, when actually it's so important to keep the meditation or the training of the mind going constantly, and to bring the meditation and all the other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path into balance. So this again is, where do we put the effort? And what is our determination pointing at? What is it really taking care of? Any comments or questions? Yeah, Memo and Esperanza. By the way, hello, Esperanza.
Hello.
One, after listening to Luang Por Ganha and then staying for a while at the Bayagiri, one of the phrases that has stuck with me the most was one that Ajahn Yaniko said once, that to have a life of practice, a life of Dhamma, is all you need to do is to put your heart in everything you do. That's what this passage is pointing to, and that's kind of, I'm trying to have that approach in everything I do, and I think it's helpful. It's really, really helpful, because it even helps when I go to the cushion and sit, because then my mind is just putting my mind is just there. The heart is there.
Yeah, yeah, this is good. This is great. It's so true. And I think, Ajahn Ganha talking about being happy, happy when you work, be happy when you're doing anything, and the happy mind is more easily concentrated. This is from the Buddha. And also, when we put our heart into it, we care about it. It's like one of the things I've noticed is that if I'm lacking in my caring about what I'm doing or an interaction that I'm having, then I need to put more energy into it. The more energy we put into it, the more we care about it, the more meaningful it becomes to us. It's, it's like what you get out of it is what you put into it kind of thing, common kind of, understanding the way things are. And I was even, Ayya Chitananda and I were talking about this earlier this morning, I think it was, and I said, this is probably why human beings are so helpless when we're born, because if parents didn't have to put so much effort into it, they probably wouldn't love us as much. The more effort we put into something, the more we care about it. And, and just to kind of remember if we're feeling distanced from our practice in any way, or distanced from our work, disinterested, even if it's something that doesn't seem, maybe we think it's not very meaningful. But if we put our effort into it, it becomes meaningful. If we look for how to train the mind as we're doing whatever we're doing, it becomes meaningful.
And another thing that I think it's been helpful for is not beating myself up, because probably the result isn't what I was looking for, but I know that I put all my effort there, and I think that's what's been most helpful, because there's always, at least in my mind, that impulse to beat myself up. Oh, you didn't do things right, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're putting your heart, all your mind, or your, it's not that you have to be like one pointedly concentrated or something. It's just have an interest, an authentic and genuine interest in what you're doing.
Yes, yes, yes. This habit of beating ourselves up, which can also spill out into kind of beating other people up too, one way or another, is really an unwholesome mental state. With wisdom, we can discern, where the mistakes have been and that we don't want to repeat those mistakes. That's okay. But the beating up of ourselves, this is like this shaming, this blaming kind of action, and it's unwholesome. So when we have unwholesome mental states, we want to abandon them, learn how to let them go, and not follow those thoughts, because it's so powerful to realize that when I think something and I put energy into that thought, that creates the karma for that thought to come up again. So when we beat ourselves up and we put energy into that thought, then tomorrow we also have that thought and we beat ourselves up again. And on it goes. And even thinking about something like, something big changes in our life and we feel a bit lost or sad. If we keep dwelling on that, then that perpetuates that feeling. But if we turn our attention to something different, something wholesome, we start building the future of our life. Because whatever we put our attention on, we put our energy into. And then that's what creates the karma for that to flourish and to be repeated and continued in the future. So when my father died, my mom was really bereft. And what I realized is that what was needed was for her to start at an appropriate point. You don't want to do some kind of like escape from the feelings, because feelings need to be held, dealt with, observed, looked at. They're dukkha. Actually, when you start to think about it in that way, feeling is always dukkha, whether we perceive it as pleasant or painful. And the way that the Buddha said we handle dukkha is by turning towards it and understanding it, First Noble Truth, and understanding where it comes from, what its root is. But when it's thinking, that's where, you know, like I started to help my mom imagine her future. And then she started to come out of it, you know. And it's like there's a right time to make that shift and to really start to reinvigorate our life. Because what is our life for? It's for awakening. It's for developing the mind, developing the character, forgiving. It's forgiving to others and being a light in the world, if you're willing to think in those terms. It's to put our heart into everything. Yeah. James?
Hi. You briefly froze up for me for a little while there, so I'm hoping I'm not going to repeat or ask a question that's been answered. You said about how what we put attention to creates karma that repeats into the future. Mm-hmm. So, like, if we always have like, is it frozen up again?
Oh. Is it freezing for others? No, okay. Maybe your connection's not so good right now.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We could hear you all the time, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, right. I'll try again. So I'm trying to understand karma and how emotional states can become entrenched in us. And so you say about whatever we put attention to becomes kind of shapes the mind. So if we think angry thoughts all the time, we will become angry people. And part of putting energy into practice is to restrain and then turn away from these, to eradicate these unwholesome thoughts and emotions, right? And that's part of right effort, which I've been looking into recently. And so, and yet meditation direction is dealing with negative emotions. You're supposed to sort of like turn towards them and be with them non-judgmentally, to sort of, I kind of feel like, for me, there seems like almost a contradiction there. On the one hand, we're supposed to be getting rid of the anger. On the other hand, if anger arises in meditation, I'm supposed to just like be with it, you know what I mean, in a non-judgmental way. So it feels like there's a tension there. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that the important distinction is between thoughts and feelings. We turn towards the feeling, but we don't repeat the thought. We don't add more angry thoughts. And that's why it's important to look for the feeling in the body. So the anger arises and you can feel it in your body, but that has nothing to do with the story of what triggered the anger. You drop the story, you drop the blame, you drop the repetition in the mind of what so-and-so did or how whatever happened. You just let it, you set it aside. That's what we don't want to repeat. But the feeling of anger, that we turn towards and we investigate. Because the only reason we're angry is what? Because of a sense of self. When we investigate and we understand the root of the dukkha, the sense of self is right there. Whatever attachment we have to how we look or what we believe we know, or whatever it is. It's all sense of self underneath there, you know. And it's like it's not to be harsh or negative with ourselves, but to really investigate, like, what is this about? Why does this matter to me? And it's also about old conditioning, causes and conditions that are what made possible for this body-mind complex to be in its existence and in the state it's in right now. But that's all from the past. So when we investigate, we drop the story, drop the thinking, we go to the feeling, we stay present with the feeling, and then we still use the thinking mind to investigate. But that's a totally different process than letting those thoughts run about, you know, like what happened, that whole thing.
Basically, the content doesn't matter. You're not unconcerned as to why the anger has arisen. Just put that aside and just direct attention towards the feeling itself. And then investigation is just investigating the feeling, the sensations itself, basically.
Yeah, and you might investigate the causes and conditions there. Like, you know, sometimes I've found that it's helpful to ask, you know, like, when have I felt this feeling? Like, what was the first time I felt this feeling? Like, way back, you know, like understanding like how this sensitivity, if you will, or whatever, came about in me. Because sometimes that can help us dissolve that pattern. But yeah, it's that's the big distinction. What's happening in the thoughts, what's happening in the feelings, let go of the content. Now, once we've resolved the feeling, like if we sit with a felt sense in the body through its whole cycle and it dissipates, or we have a realization in the process of like why I'm wired to be sensitive about this thing, when I know full well not everybody would have reacted the same way to the circumstance. Then when we come away from that, we're in a totally different mental state. Usually there's peace, there's understanding. Then there still might be something we need to do with the situation. You know, there might be some wise action that we need to take, which is good. Fine, you know, maybe we need to have a conversation with someone or whatever, but we're coming at it from a totally different place.
I once asked someone whether it was a good practice to even intentionally bring up difficult emotions, almost provoke them in oneself in order to sort of sit with them and examine them in a sort of like, I guess, in a meditative and calm environment. Is that a wise course of action?
I've certainly used it a lot. I used it a lot as I was earlier on, before I had a full understanding of like how my system works. And I think it's helpful because sometimes, first of all, sometimes when we get triggered, we can't take care of it right away. We don't have the time, the space, the privacy, whatever. And other times, you know, we feel provoked about something, and then, you know, it's a hint of a bigger problem that we know we have. It's a pattern that we know we have. And then I have found it very useful to sit with it and really even build it up in the mind. Like one time I was really felt hurt by something that Ajahn said to me. And, you know, I'm asking myself, why is this so painful? And I took a whole day of walking in the forest and really kind of like, okay, so I really want his approval. And what if I don't get it? What if I don't get approval from anyone? What if anyone in the whole world, you know, like I was really like building it up in myself so that I could fully feel it and examine it. And it is skillful if we do it in the right way. And it doesn't bring up anything about the person, anything. We're not looking at, the person as a problem. It's totally internal, and it's completely about my own mind, my own patterns, and understanding that. If there's any kind of further anger or resentment or anything coming up, then we're doing it wrong. But to really be present with what that feeling is, and even, like you said, call it up. We're calling it up for the purpose of really investigating it deeply.
I mean to give it a try, but I'm almost afraid to do so. Like that.
Well, you don't have to start by,
Yeah.
detonating dynamite. You can just bring it up kind of in a normal way and then just see what happens there. And yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome, James. And Neil?
Well, actually, you just answered my question. I thought James's question was really valuable, and I was getting the gist of your answer, but I wondered if you could give a specific example to help us see the difference between letting go of the thought and exploring the feeling. And I think you talking about feeling hurt by something Ajahn Pasano said was that example. So yeah, so thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
thanks,
welcome.
James, for that question. It was really good.
And then later he asked me, because I think he knew that I had been hurt by it. And you can really tell whether or not you're doing the process correctly when the person talks to you again and you have no negative feeling towards them, no negative, no charge on it at all. I could just talk about, and with him, of course, being my teacher, there's a special kind of support in that. But anyone, I've had it with other people too. People you don't have to you don't have to talk with anybody else about it. But if it comes up, or the next interaction with them, maybe not about this particular situation at all, but if we have feelings of warmth and even neutrality, there's no animosity, there's only the maybe still working with some residual effects of our own internal process. You really have a clear understanding of the difference between how you feel towards them and how it feels to work with what's inside. Then you're doing it right. If you're feeling negative about them, then there's more internal work to be done. Yeah, Jarrell?
I think for me, practicing in this way has been really helpful because I realized I was having a really hard time dealing with things that happened when I was a kid, and I would push away from it so much that when the memories would come up, I would feel just this overwhelming sensation and freeze. But I will say the more that I lean towards it and just try to find compassion, peace in those situations, and to recognize for me that, I'm thankful that those moments are gone. I'm alive, I'm aware, and I can change my direction, has been really helpful with not running away, because running away from those memories made me run away from everything else in my life. So to be able to just sit with it helped me develop more, I don't know what the word is, maybe stamina, or just ability to handle things and to handle when if I get activated, and
Yeah.
to not let it affect me. But at the same time, I felt like I had to do a lot of body internal work. I remember in the last retreat with you and Ayya Santussikā, Ayya Santussikā mentioned how sometimes, you know, the trauma that you experience can kind of be embedded in your body, and there's other things that we have to do to help work through that, to support dealing with it. So it just it has been really helpful, and it also reminds me of, I don't know if you, well, I think I've told you guys I work at a prison. So I work with males in a prison, and a lot of them have drug addiction, and most of their drug addiction comes from not being able to deal with things that have happened to them. So they try to numb it. Now they're realizing, okay, I can't run away from it. It's only making it worse, compound, and I'm still, the issue is still here. So their only choice now is, it's right in front of their face and it's loud, and they either deal with it or they continue to choose the drug route to keep running with it. So it's complicated in that sense. And I, you know, to recognize, to learn how to just sit there and to take the feelings.
Yep. Yeah, the word that comes up for me is capacity.
Capacity, yes.
Really,
Yeah.
you're really increasing your capacity to be present with those difficult feelings. And then, you know, and it's amazing because most of the time when we fear being with those feelings, they seem so much huger and more potent than if we turn towards them. When we turn towards them, they shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is true that sometimes we need help with this. It can be really helpful to have a coach or a therapist or someone that can help, you know, in the beginning in particular, learning how to increase this capacity and to not take these various exit routes. Drugs is only one way. There are tons of ways we exit, try to get away from the feeling, you know, and to be able to recognize when we're doing that. Sometimes we need a third party. A third party. I mean, it's a second party in a sense, but it's like it's me and the demon and somebody else, you know. It's like, and to really, you know, like be able to learn how to hold steady in the face of it, and this also, you know, is related to energy and determination. Yeah.
What it ends up feeling like for me is I feel like I can feel myself, or I envision myself just sitting there and there's a storm all around me, but I feel very calm and still and unaffected by the storm.
Yes.
So it has it has brought me peace in that sense. And I feel like, okay, I that space you guys talk about being able to create around things feels like it's coming. So just
and this is
very
another
thankful.
this is another great example of the same thing that happens in meditation. It's like we're strengthening the knower, the knowing part, and we're the knowing is a solid, it's Dhamma really. It's the solid place where we can stand, and then whatever swirl, whatever kind of like drama is happening in the feeling space that we're observing, it's okay. We get more and more confident. We have more and more of that space that's really knowing, rather than the whole kind of parade of feeling and everything else that can arise because of causes and conditions. It comes out of the past. And if you believe what the Buddha said about how long we've been going through cycle after cycle of samsara, our past is really long. And I often think that if we knew what this karmic stream has been through, we'd be so compassionate towards ourselves. We would really go, well, no wonder I feel like this. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jerome. Neil?
Yeah, insights are popping into my head all over the place suddenly. The last thing you said made me think, it's like the goal, if there is a goal, is to find the eye of the storm and stay there. So the storm is just all around you and you're always in the calm. But the other insight I had when Jarell was talking about the prisoners, I thought, in terms of making the distinction between the feelings and the thoughts, when we go with the thoughts, when we get hooked on the story, some of us may not be addicted to drugs, but that's our drug. And in much the way that when you do drugs to escape from feelings or the past, feelings from the past, it only makes things worse. And it's the same with getting hooked on your stories and your thoughts. It only makes things worse.
Yeah, and it makes things worse because it's we're identifying with it. The story becomes part of our identity. And this builds up the sense of self. And if it builds up these feelings that make us feel strong and powerful, like anger, it's building up the sense of self. And it's hollow, so it's not reliable. It leads to a crash in the end. Yeah. And the Buddha knew all this. He was teaching people all about this 2,500 years ago. That is the most important modern technology. Still. Yeah. Okay. The next quote I'm going to read is from page 352 in Stillness Flowing. And this says, no ideas of gain. So talking about Ajahn Chah's teachings about meditation, meditators were constantly reminded that they had embarked on a practice of renunciation and letting go. Seeking visions or psychic powers through meditation was to miss the point altogether. If a craving to gain or attain something took root in a meditator's mind, then they had entered upon a path without ultimate resolution. The desire to realize some special experience might lead on to new elevated realms of existence, but not to liberation. Seeking rebirth in refined states of consciousness was like a bird flying deliberately into a gilded cage. At the beginning of practice, the best motto was to be cool, steady, and patient. That sounds good. Cool, steady, and patient. Unwise gaining ideas at this stage could lead to meditators giving up altogether. So this is Ajahn Chah's words. Sometimes in meditation practice, people make determinations that are too extreme. So here comes the Adhitthana. They light incense, bow, and make a vow. As long as this incense has not burned down, then I will not move from my sitting posture under any circumstances. Whether I fall unconscious or die, whatever happens, I'll die right here. I don't know if you've ever had this inclination. This can come up on a monastic environment where people are very gung-ho, But maybe. As soon as they've made the solemn declaration, they start to meditate. And then within moments, the Maras attack them from all sides. They open their eyes to glance at the incense sticks. Oh no, there's still loads left. They grit their teeth and start again. Their minds are hot and bothered and in turmoil. They're at their wits' end. They've had enough, and they look at the incense sticks again. Surely they must be at an end. Oh no, not even halfway. This happens 3 or 4 times, and then they give up, and they sit and blame themselves for being hopeless. Oh, why am I such an idiot? It's so humiliating, and so on. They sit there suffering about being insincere and bad, all kinds of things, until their minds are an utter mess. And then the hindrances arise. If this kind of effort doesn't lead to ill will towards others, it leads to ill will towards yourself. Why? Because of craving. In fact, you don't have to take resolutions that far. You don't have to make the resolution to tie yourself up like that. Just make the resolution to let go. Progress in meditation is, for the most part, incremental, the gradual increasing dampness of a walker's coat in fog, as one Japanese master has put it, rather than its obvious drenching in the rain. So a little bit about determinations. Just make the determination to let go. And then this was the last part I wanted to read. The section is called Only the Posture Changes. A recurring theme in Lungpa's meditation instructions was the necessity to create a flow of mindfulness and alertness independent of posture. This was the only way that the necessary momentum needed to cut through the defilements could be sustained. So, thinking about energy and our determination, this is what Lungpa said about it. Meditation isn't tied to standing or walking or sitting or lying down. As we can't live completely motionless and inactive, we have to incorporate all these 4 postures into our practice. And the guiding principle to be relied on in each of them is the generation of wisdom and rightness. Rightness means right view and is another word for wisdom. Wisdom can arise at any time in any one of the 4 postures. In each posture, you can think evil thoughts or good thoughts, mistaken thoughts or correct thoughts. Disciples of the Buddha are capable of realizing the Dhamma, whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. So where does this practice, which is carried out in the 4 postures, find its focal point? It finds it in the generation of right view. Because once there is right view, then there comes to be right resolve, right speech, and the rest of the Eightfold Path. Thus, it would be better to change our way of speaking. Instead of saying that we come out of samadhi, we should say merely that we change our posture. Samadhi means stability of mind. When you emerge from samadhi, then maintain that stability in your mindfulness and alertness, in your object, in your actions, all the time. It's incorrect to think that at the end of a meditation session, you've finished work. Put forth a constant effort. It is through maintaining consistency of effort in your work, in your actions, and in your mindfulness and alertness that your meditation will develop. Any other thoughts?
Ayya.
Yes, knew it.
So, because the first reading, it reminds me of how the Buddha made the determination to sit until he enlightened.
Mhm.
Would you talk like the difference between when the Buddha did that, because he had that determination, and then like the monks or
The example
yeah,
here.
example.
Yeah. So, from what I understand of when the Buddha made that determination, he had a number of signs that he was very close to awakening. And so this determination was like an encouragement for himself. Excuse me. So it's very important to recognize, you know, that we need wisdom along with our enthusiasm and our commitment. And you know, the example there of what Luang Por Chah was saying was, you know, we can get an idea that we should, you know, be really tough, work really hard, do this, you know, but we also have to have wisdom. And the Buddha already had tried all of those austerities and, you know, that kind of pushing himself, pushing his body to the limit. And so that's not what he was doing there. You know, at that point, he already knew he was close. And it's a way of saying, okay, mind, we're going for it. We're gonna push the last little bit here. You know, like, if you ever see people running marathons or running races, I don't know if I've ever watched a marathon actually, but to watch, you know, people in a race running, and then, you know, the push right at the end to, yeah, I think that's what it was. Yes, Ling?
I have a little question about the last reading, maintaining constant mindfulness throughout all the activities during the day. You know, everybody here, if you're working or not in a monastic, I found quite hard, challenging to maintain that kind of mindfulness. For example, like I get up early morning, I have like 3 hours or something, and then I can try remember those teachings, meditating, come back home, and after 8:30 until 10. But in between, those kind of blurry. And then of course doing the work, I trying to think about, okay, give it the heart and do the best, being loving kind. That is practice. But often at the end of the day, I have this feeling, oh, kind of wasted my day. My day is shorter. I often have this kind of feeling. I feel like, okay, that was not my home. You know, it really, even I love children, but I know that's not my life for. I want another, you know, like monastic, or having devote all my attention, life to practice. That was really, I know that's my heart feeling, but another part, so I don't know how to deal with this. You know, often the days, oh, another day not wasted, like I feel a shorter day. So I wonder if you can comment a little bit for that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it would be good to let go of the idea that you wasted the day. So not that kind of like sort of self-blaming that I hear in that, but to really see what you can do to recognize the moments throughout the day when you can be really mindful and present. And it's developing this ability to be present with what you're experiencing and also with other people. I know that for me, the hardest part is to stay, mindfulness while talking. It's a very important to develop that we're mindful when we're talking. We can be mindful when we're listening. mindful in, try to notice like different actions in the day where you can really be centered in your mindfulness or in the knowing, we might say. And as you're observing what's happening, as you're participating in what's happening, and then see like which activities are the most difficult to really be present with. And then sometimes it feels like we've slowed things down, which is good. Like even different times when I've had to speak to large groups of people, for example, and especially in the past, but it can come up anytime, to feel nervous. And then learning how to slow things down, slow down how I speak, and slow down the sort of, I don't know, it's like my perception of the experience slows down. And this is a kind of like coming to mindfulness or coming to wisdom, sort of that solid stance of observing what's happening and not being so caught up in it, not being worried about what people think, really. So I would recommend that, when you go to, the next time you go to work, see if you can identify times when you can be in that space. If you're listening to someone, you can be in that space of observing, just like you're in meditation, observing your own mind. So you're observing what's going on with them. And then you can develop that to be able to observe what's going on inside of you and what they're saying and what's happening outside at the same time. So this is a development, this is a process of development. And then start noticing like which activities, like when you sit down to eat your lunch, can you be present with the lunch? When you are, in your class and you're present with the children, like just see how much you can bring, really what Ajahn Chah is saying and what Longpa Gunha says too. It's like, like, can you bring that presence of mind, that collectedness of mind into everything that you're doing? And how does that change what's happening? Sometimes people will make comments like, wow, when you come into the office, I feel so much calmer. That can happen. But it's a process. It's a process of development. So just start small. Start with something, like, oh, here's an activity or a time in the day when I can really be present. And then, like, it's not like, you have to be careful that it's not like, oh darn, I wasn't present during, like blaming ourselves. That's a layer that's dysfunctional. Instead, just like, okay, let me establish this stillness in myself as I do this activity. What do you think, Ling?
Sorry, my computer always have this problem. Yes, I think I just need this kind of wise voice to remind me. I, sometimes whatever you said totally makes sense. I know I can still use what I'm doing to develop my practice. And I did realize that some of my colleagues always say like, oh, whenever you are there, I bring the calmness. But sometimes I feel like because now I stay here, my calmness is gone. That kind of feeling, because as a part of IT, people come complain every day. I'm like I said, I'm very enjoying with the students, but there's people complaining. Those are like so drain my energy, and then I get irritated. I feel I'm making bad karma. This was not very wide to think, but I feel, yeah, totally right. I think next week I will do a bit better. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And really using people complaining as a good practice ground. Like their complaints have nothing to do with you, or even if it seems like it is complaining about something you did or didn't do, it's like still just see if what you can bring to it, like compassion, appreciation of like, okay, you're feeling frustrated, but it's like the more you can put your heart into listening to them and, you know, being, kind of bring some joy into solving the problem, then it's going to change the whole dynamic. And whenever those thoughts come of like, oh, I didn't do it right, or I did, don't don't give that any energy. Just the wisdom of, okay, this is something I can do to improve it. Take it from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Ayya. I will.
You're welcome. And James?
I like what you said about the difficulty of maintaining mindfulness, especially when speaking to people, because that made me think how so often when I realise I've made an error in behaviour, that it's often something I've said. You just don't catch yourself so quickly, whereas actions just take that much more reflection before you've like taken a wrong step. Regarding like mindfulness as keeping it flowing through the day, through the different activities. I don't know if you remember last week, I was saying how it feels like practice has sort of changed me sometimes in ways that I didn't notice until further down the line, how my mind's aligned in different ways. And I think when I started out, I kind of thought of mindfulness as being like, all through the day, I've got to remember to be mindful. I've got to remember to be mindful. Am I being mindful right now? I've got to make a note in the diary to be mindful at this time or that time or the other time. But it feels more like, although there has to be some kind of aspect like that, it feels to me like, for me, it's something that's just seemed to be arising more naturally out the process of practice, and I just find myself kind of maybe doing it. It's sometimes it's little things like when I'm doing the washing up or doing the dishes at night, I realize that I'm just cleaning the dishes, I'm just wiping a spoon, I'm just wiping a bowl. But I haven't really made any particular determination to be mindful while doing that. It just seems to happen. And I think I take it Ling is a teacher from what I hear. So I don't envy you with maintaining mindfulness at work with that. But with me, there's plenty of times at work when I do vinyl records. So a lot of the time I'm just washing them. And you can imagine that's actually quite a good time just to be mindful. But the thing is, I know before I was practicing, I would consider that a good time to dwell on things that bother me, and dwell on grudges. Particularly if I was in a foul mood. But it seems nowadays that I'm far more likely to just sort of naturally. I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect for this by any means, but it does seem that I just more easily slip into a mindset of just mindfulness of what I'm doing without really much reflection, which just seems to have the frustrating thing about practice is sometimes how hard it is to gauge whether you're getting better or worse. Is my mindfulness my meditation getting better or worse? And it's sort of hard to judge. I mean, I know I was saying to someone who hasn't meditated as long as me, but has done some time, how he felt like there was no progress being made. And I said, my impression, I have the same impression, but I think it's more like the goalposts have changed, or not the expectation has changed, but yeah. Not sure if I'm saying anything useful.
Yeah. No, I think it is. Mindful. I mean, it's like we're talking about mindfulness, and yet I see other qualities in that too: wisdom, stillness of mind, a certain stillness of mind. And Ajahn Gunha will often say you have to have the sati samadhi and panya with you all the time. So you can, another way to think about this is think about the other qualities that are also present besides the mindfulness. That there's also wisdom, that there's also stillness. So a kind of samadhi. And it's like, I can feel it in my body if I'm grounded when I'm speaking or I'm not. And the felt sense in the body is so soothing and calming and supportive. And then if I'm not, it's like I'm reaching out beyond myself. I'm like out on a limb somehow. And it doesn't have the same confidence. And to recognize that, and then why do we move out on that limb? Like, I hope that what I'm talking about makes sense to y'all, but it's like to reflect on like when we really feel like we are in the eye of the storm instead of whirling around in the storm. And to recognize that, this is also related to our intention, it's related to the energy we put in, it's related to our determination, it's related to the panya, the wisdom, it's related to the kindness. And then, the practice really starts to coalesce. And at any time, we're still working on things, obviously, we're developing on the path. And we might see, oh, there's an aspect of this that needs more attention, and we can bring it. More attention, more care. Yeah. And then, we may not notice the progress. But I like the idea of not trying to gauge the progress by what we experience when we're in sitting meditation, but by what we're experiencing in life. Because what we're really trying to develop here is our character, is our mind. It's not just about meditation. Meditation's key. It's essentially important, but so is virtue, and so is the development of wisdom. We have to really bring it all in. Yes, Jerome?
It reminds me of how I like to look at the Eightfold Path like it is that wheel, the different spokes of a wheel. And as they, for me, develop more and more, then, if one spoke is shorter than the other, and then the way it turns gets kind of lumpy and just it's not smooth, but it's okay. I'm still trying to work on developing each one to make them full so that eventually it just rolls nice and easy. But yeah, I think for me, the best gauge for me that things are changing is I feel more at ease. I don't feel so stressed out all the time or afraid of something all the time, like I'm unsafe. I'm starting to feel a lot safer for some reason.
Yeah, it's like the highest blessings chant. There's all these blessings that are actually choices we make, things we practice, that we develop. And then at the end, and every place for them is safe. It's not about the world becoming safer. It's not about samsara getting cleaned up. even though, of course, we want to do the best we can to help that. You know, it does make a difference to have environments where you can have a certain level of safety. But it's the deepest safety is the development of the heart. Yeah, thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Anyone? Yes, Mayra?
Is this a good time for the now twice weekly announcement? You can wait.
Sure.
Make sure anybody else have anything to say about the class first.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was so nice tie-in for today about our, how do you say Adhitthana? I never say it right.
Adhitthana.
Adhitthana.
Mhm.
About our Adhitthana as a community and supporting the Vasa this year for all of us together and for the monastic Sangha at KBV. And I just want to report back to everybody, because I feel like we're all in it together, that it's coming along really well, and that there's really wonderful support at the Hermitage. So there'll be people staying there throughout the time to support the Ayyas for their practice period. And there's still lots of opportunity for the rest of us to continue to offer our support for the Vasa. I think maybe everybody here hasn't heard this already. Is that true? I'm looking at some expressions. So I'll go brief. So the Vasa is the time of year in the time of the historical Buddha in India. That's the time of the rainy season and the rains retreat. And the monastic Sangha is to stay in one place during that time. It's a time not to travel, but to stay. And this year, the Ayyas are taking it for the first time as a 3-month practice period, which is, I think, really exciting for all of us. And we have the opportunity to support them and support ourselves during this time by offering the requisites for the practice. So both dana for food and dana for other supplies that might be needed. And those of us that are close by can, at certain times, and I'm coordinating, come by and make the offerings, like make food that could last for like up to 3 days and offer it to the monastery, so they'll have food, help with taking away garbage and making sure other things that are needed are there. And so I'm really hoping for a few more people, like maybe in a way to like join the local team of people who can drive and offer support in that way to the Hermitage. And that's not for everybody, because it's a little bit of a schlep, but if you're able or interested in the drive, it's quite beautiful and a lovely thing to do. And my email's on the website, so you can contact me about financial offerings or local support and any way that you'd like to. And we're still working out how to make it easy to make donations. And I'll be meeting with the Ayyas probably on Sunday, and then we'll have that more clear, so that will be easy for everybody to find. So I think that's it. And just happy for all of us. And the one other thing to say that I learned is that in the lay community, we also have an opportunity during the Vasa period to make a strong intention, and also to maybe renounce something. So this teaching today just fits perfect. So I'm excited for all of us. Like, I'm going to do it, figure out like what I want to really focus on to relinquish and hold during that time of practice period. And I kind of hope we all will. And then I think we'll get even deeper as a community together. So I think that's the announcement for today. Thank you.
That's great. Oh yeah, wanted to be renunciation buddies. Okay, it's another great idea. Thank you, Mayura. That was lovely, and yeah, it's a great way to develop our Pāramīs, our Pāramīs. Kerdwin?
Thank you so much for doing that support, Mayura. And I wanted to ask if the community is going to continue meeting together. Do we have a plan for that as well?
Yeah, there is a plan. I don't think the plan is quite solid yet, but we'll let you know. And also another thing that we're still kind of working out a bit, and like Mayura said, we're going to meet tomorrow and talk some too, but as Ayya Santussikā and I are a little bit in a transition phase around food support anyway, you know, like because we don't have anyone staying right now at the Hermitage with us. But I really appreciate those of you who have been making offerings for meals, and there are ways that we're coming up with more to be able to make use of that, and we have been making use of it to, you know, anyway, and I just want you to know that's really appreciated. So we have a few details I think to iron out with the requisites team to kind of get settled in how that flows, and that's great. But the part is for Ayya Santussikā and I to kind of work through what works for us. So we're on it. It's getting clearer. I really appreciate everybody's support. I love the way the community is coming together, and the way you support each other through WhatsApp with different, you know, kind of sharing about Dhamma offerings and things that are helpful to the practice, and also the way you've been supporting us as the monastic kind of leadership, I guess, of this community. Yeah, Mayura?
I know that you both are coming to Berkeley to teach second Saturday, even though it's third Saturday this week. I won't be able to come there today, but is anything needed right now? Because, you know, I could probably drop something off over there.
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Thank you.
The meal has been offered already today, and
I mean, for supplies to take home, you guys are covered right now.
I think we're covered right now.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes,
so-
Mahesh?
So on Saturdays, are you at the Sunnyvale Center? I thought you'll be at that change, or is it a temporary thing?
I didn't catch the last part. What was it, Mahesh? What was the last part you said?
So I thought on Saturdays you will be streaming from the
Oh,
Yeah.
monastery.
yeah, it's been very unreliable. We're obviously here at the
Yeah.
Sunnyvale Meditation Center today, and when we are going to be going to Berkeley, like Mary just mentioned, we're coming to Berkeley today, even though it's not the second Saturday, it's the third Saturday. And of course, we're always coming to the meditation center on the last Saturday of the month to do the day long. And it's been really kind of
It's kind of funny, but I do have the website homepage updated. So if you check on Saturdays, the programs, it says what we're doing, what weekend. So you can just look at that before you go if you want. Like, I think we're here every weekend in May. It probably says that.
for one reason or another, we've had to be here anyway.
So
And yeah, and then next week, by the way, we're gonna have the day long. I think that's next week, and we're gonna be celebrating Vesak. So we're gonna have a little ceremony outside, bathing the baby Buddha, which is kind of a traditional thing to do, and we're gonna be talking about the Buddha's coming into the world, his enlightenment and passing away, and how that inspires and encourages us and informs our practice, even now, after so long a time. So yeah, please feel free to join us in person or online for that. And I think we'll use the kind of normal schedule for the day-long online, like we start from 9 to 10:30, and then we come back again at 1, and then 3 o'clock, 3 to 4. So I think 1 o'clock will be the ceremony part, and we'll be setting up outside so you can join us for that. Yeah. Okay, everyone. I really so much appreciate your practice and how we're able to do this together. It's great. Thank you.